Today, we're going to talk about online game reviews, specifically something I'm calling the Tom Vasel Effect. Before online game reviews became the huge thing they are right now, most of the best information about board games was available at a site called Board Game Geek. And Board Game Geek is still a huge, huge site. But it's also a highly selective site. It's a site where the users have no problem getting past the kind of hard to use interface and the fact that the web page looks not a whole lot better than a MySpace page. Those users don't care because the content on that site is so good. The content is all created by other serious gamers who all think of themselves as experts, and many of them are. And because Board Game Geek is a place for experts, it made sense that when online game reviews started, the online game reviewers would come from that site, and their opinions would be very much in line with the type of person who spends their time at Board Game Geek. The poster child of this was Tom Vasel. Now, Tom is an excellent game reviewer, and he sort of popularized the flow of a standard online game review. Tom and his Dice Tower podcasts and videos really hit the Board Game Geek community square in the face because he sort of weighted his reviews and critiques in a way that the Board Game Geek community appreciated. Then Tom expanded out by inviting other podcasters into his expanded Dice Tower network. Now, at the same time, there were lots of other game reviewers getting popular as well, but most were following a pretty similar path and a pretty similar weighting of factors. It's important to note that these reviewers don't always agree, but they are weighting similar factors, and they are reviewing for the Board Game Geek audience most of the time. This lack of diversity is what created what I'm calling the Tom Vasel Effect. Now, I'm not talking about diversity of gender and race, and Lord knows our industry has our issues with that, but I'm talking about diversity of opinion. To use an analogy, it's like all of the reviewers are fans of horror movies, which is great if you're a player who loves horror movies, but if you like romantic comedies, you're kind of left out in the wilderness. For publishers, the Tom Vasel Effect is changing the types of games they make. Online game reviewers are so important now that if you're going to put a bunch of money behind a game, particularly at one of your big releases of the year, you're going to lean your design towards the type of game those people like. It just makes sense. Everybody wants a good review. For game designers, this is going to affect the types of games publishers say yes to. You might have a game like, say, Munchkin, a game with some technical flaws, but that could bring joy to millions of people. You're not going to be able to find a publisher for that game anymore because those technical flaws are the kinds of flaws that Board Game Geek fans really dislike. So the game reviewers are going to dislike it, and they're not going to be able to get past those technical flaws to the fact that it's going to bring fun to millions of people. The Tom Vasel Effect affects players as well, but differently based on what kind of player you are. If you happen to be a player who appreciates the type of things the Board Game Geek community does and appreciates, you're living the dream. You have so many good games coming out for you right now, it's crazy. New players are a little bit hosed, right? Because you can just imagine it. These players play their first game, maybe Cards Against Humanity or something, and they say, hey, tabletop gaming, that's for me, I can do this. And they go to Board Game Geek, and the next game they pick up is Scythe because it's reviewed so highly. And sure, Scythe is a great game, but it's not a great game for that new player's second game. Now, there are also two particular gaming profiles that I think are getting the short end of the stick right now. One is what we call red button gamers. Now, a red button gamer, you've all played with one. You're sitting around a table, somebody's winning, but if you put a big red button in the middle of the table that says, hit this button and the game gets crazy, they'll hit it every time, even if it gives them less of a chance to win. Wow. Red button gamers play to create stories and have fun moments. Right? Red button gamers don't appreciate the same types of things that the Board Game Geek community or most online game reviewers appreciate. The second one are impact gamers. Impact gamers are gamers who like when the mechanics and the theme create some sort of emotional impact. It's not important to either of those type of gamers as much if they win or if there's a high-end strategy to the game. They're playing and they're getting value out of games in a very different way. Almost nothing is being made for these two player types, and there are more of them than you would think. thankfully, the situation is starting to change. We're seeing more people who don't follow the standard Dice Tower format for review, which is great. Lots of ways to communicate information. It's nice to see people do it differently. We're also seeing people like Actual Lowell, who while they review lots of games, he spends a lot of time reviewing games that are maybe word games or party games, sort of a category you don't see a lot from other reviewers, and it's great to see that. And we're seeing people who review specifically maybe for an audience, like families or couples or games you can play with your kids. And that's really great to see. It's nice branching out. Well, if you want to enter the industry as an online game reviewer, now is actually a really good time because there's lots of underserved audiences. Maybe you shake things up by reviewing games other people don't review. Maybe you do something different by reviewing for one of those underserved sort of player types. Maybe you just change the format up, right? Maybe you do game reviews, but they're all 90 seconds long. Whatever the case is, there's a lot of room for creativity and new thought. If you enjoy online game reviews, put down your favorite in the comments down below with why you like them. I'm just really curious. I find the whole online game review thing fascinating. And thanks so much for watching. If you're a game designer on the East Coast and you want to learn more about how to design games specifically for those impact gamers, head to Magfest this January. At Magfest, James Portnow and I will be doing a panel called The Game Mechanics of Love, and it's all about how to design games for emotional responses. It should be a really good discussion, and if you're not on the East Coast, I think Magfest streams their panel, so check that out.